A Winter Getaway is a pretty good film. It took me a little while to warm to one of the protagonists, but in general, I found this to be very pleasant. This was released originally in 2021. It's directed by Stephen R. Monroe and written by Stephen Sessions, and it stars Nazneen Contractor as Courtney and Brooks Darnell as Joe. And Courtney works for a concierge service, and she's tasked with being the concierge for this very wealthy company owner. At least that's who she thinks it is. We, the viewer, learn pretty much straight away that this is actually not the case because Joe was given this luxury vacation as a gift from a friend who has a lot of money. But with this case of mistaken identity, he's treated like somebody with a lot of money, and he decides to go along with it. And because the name is correct, it's just the fact that he didn't pay for it himself isn't known to Courtney. He initially doesn't actually need to lie about anything because he doesn't need to tell them he's not this company owner because it never comes up. But then it does come up and he kind of brushes it off. But the deeper into it he gets, the harder it's going to be for him to reveal actually, I'm not as wealthy as you think I am. This was a gift. I'm not the company owner. And I was really keen to find out what would happen if and when that information was revealed. And I will talk more about that with a spoiler warning in a moment. I want to praise that part of it, but I'll get there in a moment. And I'll be honest, it took me a little while to like him. I don't think that Joe was instantly a very likable character, but over time I learned to really like him, and I really liked the on-screen chemistry between the romantic leads, and I enjoyed Courtney and Joe interacting with each other. It was very different for Courtney as well, because while she's gone on this vacation as the concierge, she doesn't usually, understandably, get to take part in the activities that she's organising. She is there to work. But Joe, being a solo traveller, has said, I don't want to do these things on my own. Please enjoy them with me. And we get to see her being both professional but also having fun and relaxing and enjoying these wealthy experiences that she thinks Joe is able to afford, when in reality, we, the viewer, know that that's not the case. And I think it does raise an interesting discussion about whether your opinion would change of somebody if you realised they didn't have money. And that's one of the reasons why Joe didn't want to be honest with her once they started to get involved a little bit. And it's not so much that they got involved because professionally Courtney isn't allowed to date the people for whom she is providing this concierge service. But there's definitely a spark between them, and Joe could see this and didn't want to say, oh, by the way, I haven't got a lot of money like this. So it does raise an interesting point about how we treat people differently, or how some people treat people differently when they know they have money. And it's definitely very interesting. And as I said, I was keen to find out what would happen if and when the truth came out, and indeed how that would come about, as I wasn't sure what would happen, because as I said, Joe is Joe by name. They haven't got his name incorrect. It's not really a case of mistaken identity. There's just been a bit of miscommunication with how this is being paid for. And that's certainly a tangled web, and I wasn't sure how they'd get out of it. But I really enjoyed it. As I said, it took a little bit of time for me to like Joe, but once I did, absolutely no problems. And it's a very enjoyable film. And I will now give a spoiler warning for something that I'm about to praise, because I was very impressed that they didn't fall into the usual temper tantrum. Something I've mentioned before is that I hate it in rom-coms when one of the characters completely overreacts to a situation. And that's not what happens here. So I will explain what happens. So this is a spoiler for something that happens towards the end. Courtney has found out the truth, and Joe knocks on her door at the perfect moment and says, I think we need to talk. And instead of slamming the door in his face or storming off, I mean, it was her room, but telling Joe to leave, Courtney said, yes, I think we do need to talk. And I loved it. She didn't overreact. She didn't just ignore the situation. She did the grown-up, mature thing and said, yes, we need to talk. And I loved it. I was so pleased that's the direction they went with, because I feel like it's more realistic. anybody in that situation, I feel, would want answers. Whereas in other films like this, the protagonist in that situation has stormed off and had a bit of a temper tantrum. But here, it's very believable, and she demanded answers, and I rather appreciated that. So, really great film. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Gorgeous views and scenery as well. It's filmed in Canada. It's filmed in quite a few places in Canada, mostly Alberta and a place that I've never heard of called Manitoba. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but visually it's very, very beautiful. So, really enjoyable film. If it sounds like your kind of film, definitely worth checking out. I certainly enjoyed it.